5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here come the Astros, burning with desire. Here come the Astros, breathing orange fire. Here come the Astros, with winning on their mind. Here come the Astros, number one every time. Go, go, Astros. We want Houston! We want Houston! Alvarez hits a high drive, center field. Veerling's back! This game is turned upside down!
And the pitch is lifted to right by Castellanos. Long run for Tucker, over toward the line, and foul territory. Makes the catch, and the Houston Astros do it again! 2022 World Series champions!
And now, Go Astros. Astros baseball from three guys who've been there since Art Howe had hair.
Hey everybody, remember us? We bring you the latest in Astros breaking news, and you all know you tuned in today to find out that Matt Gage has been designated for assignment as of about 12 minutes ago.
Whoa, at least they didn't do it during Fan Fest or something.
They normally do that.
Matt,
I guess
come
that's
over a
the
second.
aside to go signing autographs at the shed. That used to be the thing.
Yeah.
I'm Andy Tomchesson. That is James Christopher. This is Brian Arbor, and this is Go Astros 2024 edition. So we're now into what, season 5 of this? We've been doing it for 5 seasons.
I feel like we should start counting seasons. I never really did, because the show doesn't necessarily stop at a natural point. Because if something happens, we always.
Well, we're very much like The Simpsons in that we started on another show as a segment.
Yes, we are the Simpsons of sports talk, whatever, whether you're listening on your phone or watching on YouTube or whatever.
And that
This
actually
may be the only time I've ever compared anything I've done to The Simpsons, but hey, I'll take it.
and that actual show that we started on doesn't technically exist anymore. So
That's
like Tracy Ullman.
Wow. And
So
we just hired Matt Groening. So here you go.
Yeah, someday, Jim, you can guest star on whatever vehicle Larry David's doing as a love interest, I guess.
I'm into it.
We do have better news for most of you Astros fans. As you all know, late last week, the Astros went completely against their script and acquired Josh Hader, signed him as a free agent for a 5-year, $195 million deal or something like that. It's 19 per, which makes him the highest paid reliever in history. Like $500,000 more than Edwin Diaz
In present value,
well,
which agents care about deeply.
I expect you're going to correct my numbers in any financial terms I'm about to throw out. That's
right.
That's your role.
And I'll joke about going to film school.
But I think the most incredible thing about that is that Jim Crane has completely gone against everything he's done for 11 years in this signing. At least that's the way I sit from it here. I'll start with Jim. Where are you with our new double closers, triple closers, maybe?
I'm excited about the acquisition. And I know like Brian's going to get, because I read his Substack already. And I know he's going to get into all the reasons why everybody should be. I think the thing that has me excited about the most of these is what it means kind of off the field. And I think it's one that Jim Crane recognizes that his team is more valuable if they win, that he has business plans for outside Minute Maid Park that are going to be very expensive and last far into the future. And therefore it's easier to get excited about that if you're winning. And maybe it adds some credence or some backing up to him saying the window's always open as long as I own the team. And so I think I look at it from obviously the 2024 peace of mind. And then I know we could talk about the period afterward, but it just makes me wonder how aggressive he's going to continue to be this year to get another pennant. But also maybe, we've been talking about the window closing on this show since we've had this show, or before the show was still a segment. And the window hasn't closed yet. So maybe he's going to stick to his word, which is rare for a sports owner.
Well, I think it was going to close when Springer left, and then it was certainly going to close when Correa left, and then it was going to close when Verlander did. I mean, there was a lot of closing of the window.
The closing when Cole left, that also happened.
Yeah,
There's
it's a
more
very long
closing than we
window.
have closers.
Mhm.
Brian, you wrote a fantastic Substack article. Where are you on the signing of Josh Hader?
Thank you. Well, one, thank you for reading, and two, the Astros spend a ton of resources on their bullpen. They pay more for their bullpen than any other team in baseball in 2024. They're one inning at a time, guys. So they're kind of, um, and oftentimes relievers, because they're so volatile, just kind of show up and dominate. The best reliever in the American League last year is Felix Bautista, who came out of nowhere, essentially. So there's a lot of sort of conventional wisdom that you shouldn't put this many resources in a bullpen. And so I respect that argument. I've seen that argument out there. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, no, 2024 is a really big year for the Astros, and this is the best bang for their buck move they could make to help the team in 2024.
Are there legitimate people saying that the baseball team shouldn't spend this much on a bullpen, or is it just Yankees fans? Because that's who I've seen
Oh,
complaining
I've
about
seen
it.
that a lot.
So I've certainly seen Yankee fans on that, but I try not to judge by dumb people. But I like I subscribe to the Joe Sheehan newsletter. Joe Sheehan's been, someone I've been reading about baseball for 25 years now. He's like, this is too much for a bullpen. You could just, you don't buy a bullpen, you just find them. So it's not just a dumb Yankee fan arguments. It's basically sort of in these smart guy people who I've been reading for years and adopted a lot of arguments from. I'm going against them on this one here because, again, 2024 is a big year for the Astros, and this is a move that really pushes them. I mean, they're kind of all in for 2024. That doesn't mean 2025 is a disaster. This isn't like 2005 where, they're going to fall off a cliff immediately after this. But, 2024 is a big year. What the window is next year is different than what it is this year. I'm not sure we're going to, like Josh Hader's contract in the 2028 season. But in 2024, and a big year for the Astros is 2024. This is a big move. This is something that can be real helpful in October, and it'll be helpful for 60 innings throughout this season.
So I'll start with Brian on this. I know he just talked for a minute, but on paper, why is this a good deal for the Astros? What does Josh Hader bring to the Astros that either we don't have or we needed more of?
More strikeouts than any on a per inning basis than any pitcher in the history of baseball.
I mean, that sounds like it's good. Is that good?
Yeah. I mean, if they can't hit the ball. If they do not hit the ball, if they swing and miss, that's a good thing. You can't make an error. You can't have, somebody drop a pop-up. You can't have a leader go through, and you can't have Hader's vulnerability is fastball command. Part because he's got a fastball that no one can find. So sometimes he walks guys, and every once in a while, when his fastball straightens out and someone times it, they hit it a long way. He'll go a home run we don't like it at some point this season, and we will curse at it. But again, he averages 15 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. Again, no one has as many in the history of baseball. Period.
All right, Jim, how about you? Where are you with the on-field product that we're putting together in the bullpen?
Well, I think it does a couple things, and I'll start postseason first. It shortens the game, and we're always talking about getting you want your pitchers to have as few looks as possible, particularly in the postseason. That way, they're more effective in games 6 and 7 when they haven't been seen a whole bunch. And so now all of a sudden, if everybody's healthy, I know knock on wood, but you now have to have your starter get you 6 innings, and then they never have to see the roll the dice bullpen again. Again, all things being equal and all the baseball god stuff, I know how it can go. The other thing that's kind of neat about it, if you think about it, is not only obviously I think it's going to line up Abreu, then Presley, and then Hader, but you also have a situation where you might have a really good starter every single game of the season this year, and not, all right, we know that everybody's taxed. They pitched in 2 games, so we're going to hope Johnny What's His Nuts can close it out for him. So I think it's just another tool in the belt. And I would love the internet rumors of Blake Snell as well eventually, but I don't know if that'll happen. But no, I think that's mostly it. You're just a lot more lethal. You can make many more choices. We talked about 2022 and how Dusty managed that bullpen so well because that bullpen was awesome, and I think it's a situation that we're going to see again with a better offense.
So that brings a question. So you talked about usage and how you might deploy the weapons, and I'll start with Jim on this. Are there concerns with Hader and his reputation about how he wants to be used? And for those of you that aren't familiar, last year in San Diego, Bob Melvin kind of was vocal about the complaints that Hader, I don't want to say quit on the team, but kind of came to the point of, we're not in the playoffs anymore. Why am I pitching more than 2 days in a row? I don't want to pitch. I don't want to pitch if it's not a safe situation. I think some of that was overblown, but there's probably some truth about that because I think Bob Melvin generally knows what he's talking about. Is that a concern? Is the chemistry a concern?
The chemistry is a concern, and it would be less of a concern if Correa were still here. But I do believe the chemistry in the clubhouse has strong leaders that fall in line. And from everything that I've read, they talked to Presley before the signing happened. And so if Presley goes in knowing he's the eighth inning guy, or that he's not at least the primary closer, then I do think I think that's going to go a long way to keeping those situations, keeping it all placid. And I wish that we would get away from closers anyway and go more to like situations. But I do feel like with having talked to Presley first, I do think that they've ironed out any issues that might be there.
Brian, how about you?
Yeah. I mean, I will say this here. Presley didn't talk at FanFest this weekend. And I don't know, not everyone who was there, he was there, but didn't talk to the media. Not all the players who were there talked to the media. It's something sort of worth pointing out. And, it's got to be a little frustrating for him, part of it. Back to Andy's original question, is Hader a diva? I mean, there's some evidence that it is. One theory is he just was that because he wanted his contract, and now that he's got his money, he'll be a little less so. I don't know, because one thing that baseball players tend to be is creatures of routine. They like to be able to sort of anticipate, and certainly managers push them in that direction. And Joe Espada was talking this weekend as though he's going to sort of have roles for guys, and that they'll be sort of, be assigned to innings. So it would be sort of predictable in that way. If that makes it easier, that may sort of reduce tensions. On the other hand, in the end, I think from a general manager standpoint, from a front office standpoint, get good talent and then have managers who can massage egos and deal with that. Includes, hey, if they want to curse out Dana Brown for making this decision in the clubhouse, that's fine. I'm sure that's happened many times in baseball before, and that can be an effective strategy to sort of dealing with this. I think it can be dealt with, but that doesn't mean it's non-existent.
Well,
Yeah,
first
and I
of
think
all,
it's a
Brian,
big-
I think the internet says we're supposed to credit Jim Crane on this one, not Dana Brown, but we'll let you know when Dana Brown gets to make a decision. I don't know.
He only
Hey,
gets to make a bad
if I'm Joe
decision.
Spot, if I'm Joe Spot, am I blaming the guy who signs all our paychecks or the other guy?
Well, yeah, fair.
Yeah, one of those is fungible, and it's not Jim Crane.
Yeah.
I think the chemistry is a concern for me. Not that you guys asked me, but I'm gonna opine
We do want to
anyway.
know because you're.
Well, this is 2 clubhouses in a row where Hader has left bad taste in mouths of teammates and coaches, and it'll be interesting to see. And I think it's a big challenge for Joe Espada in his first time as a manager. He's got a very good coaching staff under him. I hope that Hader is open to whatever possibilities come, because for the first time in his life, he's going to have a chance to win a championship. I don't think that was true in Milwaukee, and it certainly wasn't true in San Diego last year. And I guess it's now official. The Astros have just posted that they've welcomed Josh Hader back to the Houston Astros organization. So I guess he passed his physical. P-test
How
came back.
much does the back part do you think play into it for the chemistry? Because there are guys on the team that remember him from the minors, that remember what it was like to drive in shitty buses with him and do that whole thing. And then also, how much of it do you think Verlander can look at him and say, trust me, listen to these guys, and you're going to be better?
I think Verlander is probably a really good comp. Verlander had a reputation in Detroit. And diva is probably not the right word, but being a creature of habit. And we've seen some of that with Verlander. He wants to pitch when he wants to pitch, which is every fifth day. Doesn't necessarily want to go sooner, doesn't really want to go that much later unless he's rehabbing from a Tommy John surgery. But he was also very open to the approach the Astros had as far as analytics go. The Tigers just didn't provide him the data, the when to throw what pitch and when to junk some other pitches that weren't as effective anymore. And I don't know that Hader necessarily has that many pitches where you start talking about throwing this in this situation more or less, because he is what he is. He's a guy that strikes out a lot of guys. But I hope that anybody that walks into this organization has their eyes open to the ability that the Astros have had over the last 7 years to make pitchers better. And Hader doesn't honestly need a whole lot of getting better, but if there's something to reduce the home run rate, if there's something to reduce whatever weakness you can go find in his numbers, I'm sure the Astros are going to try to do that. I don't always know that the Padres organization was real big on doing that, or that Hader was receptive to it. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think Espada's got that's probably the first big test of his managership, trying to keep this from turning into a Jack Parkman situation.
Agreed.
And there's your Major League 2 reference that Jim hates.
I don't have a follow up for that even. I want Parkman, but it doesn't really work. In the ALCS, I want Hader.
So I think the consensus.
The screenwriter Major League is alumnus of my college, and we only recognize one of those 2 movies in the alumni stuff.
That is fair and warranted, I think. Other news from the Astros. Before we get to the other news, so immediately on Twitter, and I'll start with Brian on this. As soon as everybody got over the initial shock, it seems like a lot of my Twitter feed decided to project on Jim Crane that, well, now that he's passed the first threshold on the salary tax, sorry, we don't call it a salary tax, competitive balance tax, that he should just blow it wide open, sign Blake Snell and Bellinger and get Neris back. And maybe if Nolan's pitching, we can make him happy again. I mean, just the money is down no object again. How realistic is that? I understand the mindset, but where are the Astros done for the offseason, or do we have a feeling there's going to be more coming?
I think they're done for the offseason. I mean, so one is, I'm not optimistic for the team that signs Blake Snell or Cody Bellinger. They're going to get paid as though they're going to get paid kind of like they were playing last year when they were star level players, and you hope they're not the injured or broken players they were in the couple seasons before that. So they've only been star level players on, I think, both of them, in Snell's case, 2 seasons out of his 7 in the majors, and a similar ratio, I think a little better for Bellinger, but. So I would not be optimistic about signing them for any team. The Angels are rumored to be one of the suitors for Blake Snell, and that seems like a terrible fit. So I hope that happens from an AL West standpoint.
That's where pitching goes to die.
It's on brand. So
Okay. Let's talk about sort of Jim Crane's perspective here, and from the Astros front office perspective. The Astros have a lot of good players. And the one sort of hole they had was in the bullpen. So we had been talking throughout the offseason, I've been writing throughout the offseason, that that's one place that they're going to sign people. This came together after Kendall Graveman got injured, which leads to a couple questions, right? So one is, were they thinking about this all along and the timing's coincidental? Not likely, but, throw that out there. Were they saying, okay, Graveman's out, we definitely got to go find somebody. And as they thought about going to find somebody, I said, well, why do we want to, why get hamburger when we can buy steak? If we're going to get one more bullpen arm, why not get the best bullpen arm? One of the handful of best bullpen arms in the majors. And yeah, we've got some issues in the clubhouse and ego, but we can deal with that. It'll cost, but all it'll cost is, and Crane's clearly a big part of making the decision. All it'll cost is my money and a second round pick next year. So if we're going to go over the tax, we might as well go. And there's, we might as well, go over. There's no other major hole on this team. It'd be better if there was a left-handed hitting outfielder. And again, Jake Myers is a modest player, but I still think a productive and helpful player. You've got, the back end of the rotation isn't great, but almost no teams is. They're in relatively good shape for all of that. So I don't anticipate there's another thing here. If there is, it's for some sort of left-handed option that can play left field and first base.
So Jock Peterson.
Maybe.
Could you?
I'm not sure you can play with a glove. I'm not sure you can play with a glove on, but that's a different story.
Could you wear a pearl necklace if Jock Peterson was on the team? Because I would have to go find some receipts from myself on.
I did not make it fun of Jock Peterson for wearing the pearl necklace, but don't care for it myself, so we'll pass on that.
Still a Dodger.
This is a family show, everybody.
By the way, if he doesn't, if we sign Jock Peterson and he doesn't play the ZZ Top song as his walk-up song, what was the point?
I mean, I don't think there's much of a point to signing Jock Peterson, but Twitter will tell you otherwise. Jim, what do you think? Are we kind of set? Is there more to come?
I think there is more to come, but I don't think you're going to see something that splashy. I think that I can see another end of the rotation starter and maybe another reliever and maybe a bat off the bench, but nothing that's going to. I mean, Brian's exactly right about Snell and Bellinger. That would be ludicrous to throw the money that they want, particularly Bellinger, after he had a good year, but then he had 3 years where he was really bad. So I can definitely see end of the rotation kind of guy, just to add a little bit more depth, maybe even on some minor league contracts, and maybe now kind of that Kendall Graveman-esque reliever who could, pitch the sixth or whatever. But obviously the big moves are done, because I don't think Graveman was very good.
But we have Forrest Whitley. Loch Ness Monster and Forrest Whitley are going to be available to pitch the sixth.
I have never given up on Forrest Whitley.
Have you given up on Rafael Montero? Because he's the other candidate for the sixth.
No,
and who knows what you're going to get from Rafael. I think, it's one of the things Brian brought up earlier. You don't know, to the point of we're spending a lot of money on the bullpen. You don't know what you get from bullpen guys year to year, except for the very best of your bullpen guys.
Sure.
Ryan Presley.
As Forrest Gump's mother said, life is like a Rafael Montero season. You never know what you're going to get.
But if he's healthy and mostly pitching in non-pressure situations, I think he's a value add. Yeah. And you're not going to cut him because he's making too much money.
And he had moments toward the end of last season where he looked like the guy from the year before.
And it's an even numbered year.
Didn't we just release a Noli Cannoli, by the way?
We did.
Yeah.
He is no longer in the Astros organization.
Well, they really tried to make that happen, didn't they?
There was merch in the clubhouse or in the gift shop at Minute Maid Park. I think the second week that the post-COVID season was open. And he was cut, I think, almost immediately, sent down to AAA almost immediately after that. All right. So on a happier note, I don't know if you can get much happier than signing Josh Hader, but I think happy, or at least emotionally satisfying for me. The Astros named 2 new members of their internal Hall of Fame. One of those is near and dear to all of us, Ken Caminiti, who played for the Astros beginning in 1987 until he was traded in the 1994 offseason, and then came back for a cup of coffee. What was that? The 2001 season, I believe. After winning an MVP with the Padres, after throwing out Craig Coburn from his butt with a torn rotator cuff, by 3 steps, by the way. So I don't know if that was Caminiti making a great play, Craig Coburn being ultra slow, or some combination of the two, but that highlight's been kind of going all around the internet. And then Ray Cardenas, who is the longtime Spanish language broadcaster for the Astros. The way that Milo Hamilton or Gene Elston was the voice of the Astros for so many of us growing up, Renee was that guy for your Latin American audience, your Hispanic audience. I don't know that we're all that qualified to talk about the broadcasting side, but start with Jim on this. Memories of Ken Caminiti, how deserving is this? Is it something that we're happy about?
It's something I'm very happy about. Caminiti, one of the things I love about baseball is there are guys that live large in our hearts that maybe not that Kevin Caminiti is one of these because he did have the MVP season, but just one of those guys that we all remember from our three childhoods, right? Like he was somebody that was specifically rooted in the three of us, our childhoods. I hate the fact that my first memory that popped up with him was the picture of him and Craig Biggio and Gerald Young in the locker room without their shirts on. I don't know why that's the first thing that popped in my head, but no, I mean the guy just looked like he was going to be the one to go out and pick a fight for you and win the fight. And I think that's one thing I really loved about him is he was just the bulldog for the Astros.
Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And he was defensively splendid at third base. So most of my memories are him of, diving or catching balls, or like he once went back on this sort of half loop, half line drive that I've never seen another player catch. So he was this defensively beautiful player and really sort of, came into the Astros when they were at their low point, as they were declining in the late 80s and through in the at times, and almost made it to winning the Central Division in '95 and was there on the '94 team. The other bit of this that I love from this weekend that fits there is Craig Biggio wasn't at FanFest this weekend because he was at the wedding for Caminiti's daughter in New Orleans. And so there's this great picture of Biggio along with Caminiti's daughters. And it's a reminder that, not only were these, great players, but sort of the friendships and bonds of, of those guys and their families really go beyond the entertainment we get from watching them.
My immediate thoughts are, Jim, is there a more 80s thing to do than have a bunch of your young players making cheesecake posters for promotion? Because that doesn't really happen in Major League Baseball anymore. Thank God.
No.
Do kids put posters on their wall anymore? And is it of cheesy sports photos like we all had?
No, like I
hope
had
they
the
do.
Troy Aikman with the gunslinger thing, and yeah, no, I don't think so.
I was a big fan of the Sports Illustrated posters, the white framed with the very clean name. And I think in college we had a fat guy Hall of Fame, so it's like Pete Incaviglia and Pete Harnich, but with full gut regalia out. Caminiti came up at a really interesting time because the Astros were really successful in 1986 and then were really bad in 1987, and he came up in July of 1987. And he immediately kind of gave you hope for the future, even though it wasn't realized for a few years, because I think his debut, he went 2 for 3 with a home run, a triple, and scored the winning run in that game. And I think had 2 defensive assists or throwouts. Just was kind of a monster in that game. And then you kind of spent the rest of that season, even though he played a lot, waiting for a lot more of that. And then when Biggio came the next year, you started feeling that you had kind of a base to build against. I still, somewhere in my stuff, have a box of, I don't remember what they're called, Astros cereal, but it's Bagwell, Caminiti, and Biggio eating bowls of cereal. And the cereal's still in the box. I'm afraid to open the bag because I'm sure I'm going to get some sort of contact poison or high from it at this point. But really happy for the Caminiti family, really happy for obviously we wish he was here to accept the award this summer. But I think that when I think of an Astros Hall of Fame, these are the kind of guys that I want to see remembered more. It's easy to pick out the Bagwells and the Biggios and the Berkmans.
Totally. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. Exactly. Like these are our guys, whether or not they were actual Hall of Famers for that the league might recognize, like these guys in the Terry Pools of the world. That's who I want to see getting in.
Yeah. And I hope that part of Jim Crane's entertainment village, whatever it's going to be called across the street from Minute Maid, is going to have an actual Astros Hall of Fame at some point and not just a hallway at the back of the center field concourse.
I do believe that is the plan.
So, I mean, but that's the kind of guy that I'd want to see in there. Those are the kind of guys that, yeah, you remember the Hall of Famers, obviously, but the guys who were kind of the meat and potato guys. And, with Caminiti, he was an incredible defensive player, to Brian's point. I mean, arguably, and I know I'm going to get yelled at about this, but certainly not on the same stage, but arguably had some of the skills that made Brooke Robinson so great, because he was not only had a cannon for an arm, but always managed to get his glove on the ball. it didn't really matter where he was, in position, out of position, over his head, between his legs. He made the plays.
No,
Uh,
yeah, and I also think it's awesome too that Biggio was the one who told the family he's getting in.
Yep.
So I think again, back to Brian's point, I know we're about to bounce, but next week we'll obviously be talking about the Hall of Fame, and I just want to get a finger on the pulse of you guys. Does Wagner get in?
For
Brian?
me, the last tracker I saw was he was hovering around 79, 80%. So I hope that's right, which means he, made it by 4 or 5%.
The problem, the notion with the tracker though is that the people who don't publicly release their ballot tend to be the most curmudgeonly,
Sure.
and so a lot
and
of players tend to come down a little bit. So fingers crossed for Wags.
yeah, to that point, we waited what 7 years, 8 years for Bagwell to finally be elected. Biggio was a little bit shorter, but not much. So you never can predict what they're going to do. I mean, this is Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Well, and
Really amazing. We got like 93% of the votes, and the 7 people who voted against him were not drummed out of the profession. So I am,
Yeah,
right.
and it's silly because, oh yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, just not this year, is a really stupid metric. But
Well, it's one of the many ways that baseball remains dumber than its other sport counterparts. And obviously, we can talk about this next week, whether he does or doesn't, but his numbers rival Mariano Rivera, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
well, I guarantee you, if Wagner doesn't get in Tuesday night at 5 o'clock, we will be talking about it in a negative, curmudgeonly sort of way.
I don't know what happened.
Blame Orbit.
Yeah, blaming Orbit. Now we're going handheld. It's like The Office of Go Astros, gritty documentary style.
Are you gonna spike the camera like Jim?
I'm gonna do like this.
All right. I think that's all we had today. Hopefully we're wrong and the Astros have 5 more signings before next week, so we have something to fill 30 minutes with. But otherwise, you'll hear us just opine on Billy Wagner and how great he is. For Go Astros, I'm Andy Tomchesson. That's James Christopher and Brian Arbor from the frigid Northeast, bidding you a fond adieu.